Sabrina 70s comic, issue 66. Hilda tells Sabrina that she's supposed to go on a skiing trip with this person I've never heard of before in a half hour, and the room's a disaster. Why does she care? Sabrina uses magic to fix it immediately while asking what's wrong with it. Why is Hilda unhappily looking at the camera instead of being proud of her for using her magic? Sabrina uses magic to take care of her homework and school projects right away. Okay, I don't buy that. She can't read all of the questions that fast. Sabrina doesn't want to pack her ski things because she doesn't want to drag along all that heavy equipment. So she'd rather just zap up whatever she needs. Hilda says that she's gonna strain her powers and warns her that it could take months to recharge them. While I like that they're bringing back that kind of realistic lore, I don't like how they keep flip-flopping on the amount of times required. It's supposed to take a few days for the annual recharge, right? Or 24 hours? How could it take a few months if it only takes a few days to do the annual magic recharge? And I'm guessing she'll still have her powers in the next story anyways, even if Hilda inevitably turns out to be right, because otherwise her foreshadowing won't have a point. Witches wouldn't drain their powers by accident if they could have a way to measure how much they have left numerically, which you'd think witches would have invented. Out of nowhere, because complete bullshit, Della shows up and says she can't stand witches that supposedly waste their powers on trivial things. Excuse me, first of all, you want witches to use their powers. If you have the power, use it. She was like, oh no, our powers would fade away. Second, I refuse to believe that Della isn't the type to use her powers for everything. But instead, she decides to teach Sabrina a lesson for no reason whatsoever. I feel like skipping this story. It's interesting that Rosalind is a witch too, but I know the rest of the story is gonna suck, so I no longer care. The girls get floated away in front of mortals because they have their own private ski lift service. They zap up their ski outfits, and for no reason Della wants to cure the witches of a frivolous attitude when I'm sure she's no better, and I thought she wanted this. I'd expect her to be mad at Sabrina for not wanting to use her powers. Because she doesn't want her to be a self-hating witch who'd rather be a mortal. Fuck this story. Downer ending in a light-hearted kids' comic. Oh, at least the ending has Sabrina happy anyways, because she got to party with a bunch of boys who wanted shelter from the storm. But that's not gonna make me forgive that fucking hypocrite. She just sends mixed messages, and it comes off as her just wanting any excuse to cause trouble to Sabrina. In the next story, which should hopefully calm me down, Hilda says there's too much violence in the world, and she wants to make a potion that'll bring peace and goodwill to everyone. Huh? So she's not a stereotypical evil witch anymore? She's still dressed like one. Did the comic want us to notice that she was being nicer for the last couple issues? Was she given character development on purpose? Because no one was commenting on her progress. Zelda tells Hilda to not let Della find out about it because she'd be furious for no reason. How do they expect Della to not find out when she finds out about the most minor things because of her spies? Hilda wouldn't even attempt this. Wouldn't it make more sense for literally anyone else to make this potion? Like, Sabrina? How could one potion bring goodwill and peace to everyone instead of just a few people drinking it? Why didn't any witch do this before, like Sabrina? Because Della wouldn't let them. They should know that. Meanwhile, Sabrina's tired because she stayed up half the night trying to complete her school assignments. And she hopes her chemistry teacher will accept her half-assed experiment. Hilda tells her she can't go to school without breakfast, and she says she'll just park her books and things here. Since when would someone say this while doing this? It's just there to be ominous. Sure enough, because she's in a rush, she grabs the wrong flask because they both look identical to each other, and she was looking over at Hilda. Wouldn't she not put a flask of hers next to another one? Wouldn't she try harder to avoid this mistake? She notices there's a bank robbery, and a cop jumps on a robber grabbing his leg, and Sabrina accidentally spills the potion on them, so they act nice to each other. The robber telling him to just put the cuffs on him because he's a rat. A black cat runs past her, and a dog runs into her legs hard enough to trip her, so it spills on them. And it stands up next to a dog, and they put their arms around each other. If the potion has to spill on someone to make them and only them peaceful, then what was the point of even bothering with the goal of making everyone that way? It'd take forever. It would come in handy to get out of a tight situation peacefully without magic abuse against someone. But it'd have to be made every single time it's depleted. And you'd think a mere point would achieve this. Sabrina hopes her teacher will accept her experiment because she seems to have lost a lot of it. The teacher says this doesn't look like ammonium bicarbonate. How'd he know? It looks identical to the other flask. And apparently this is even the first time he's taken enough of a close look at it to sniff it. So how'd he know it was the wrong chemical? There's no microscope near him. He smells it and gives everyone in class an A. And cancels all exams for the rest of the semester. He wouldn't be allowed to do this. He'd get reprimanded for it. When he drops the flask and breaks it, everyone in the room who smells it starts acting nice. This is a sweet story, but also a sad one, because I'm just thinking, it shouldn't require a potion for them all to act like this. And I guess it is affecting Sabrina. But she's just so nice normally that you wouldn't notice a difference. A bully apologizes to someone for beating him up yesterday and shakes his hand. That someone, who's nicknamed Toad, doesn't look hurt at all, and admits that he started it by writing nasty graffiti about him. Then a girl apologizes to another one for calling her a snob. The story ends with Sabrina being so stupid that she still doesn't get that her flask was switched with Hilda's potion after she's told about the potion's existence. Wouldn't a witch recognize when people's minds are being changed with a spell? It would have made sense for Della to hate this potion if she was serious about non-interference. But by encouraging witches to abuse their magic against mortals, she's advocating the opposite. So she'd be against it because it's evil. And somehow Della didn't show up in this story. In the next story, Ambrose and Sabrina walk out of a movie theater showing off Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. That alternate title doesn't fool me when I can clearly see R2 and C-3PO on the poster. Sabrina wishes that she had robots of her own. I figured that Hilda would hate the idea because she's old-fashioned enough to dress like a witch all the time. But instead she decides to humor her. And even looks in a book she happened to have that was dedicated enough to have ancient robot incantations. It makes sense if it was just a magic book. How could there be that many robot spells? Wouldn't Stella have nothing but robots in her employment then? Because she wouldn't have to pay them? Hilda immediately zaps up some robots to serve them. Let me guess. It'll horribly backfire somehow to justify them not being in every story from now on. Because the writer's already really jealous. You know, they could accomplish the same thing by summoning genies, which Sabrina has done, no problem. Twice. Sabrina calls Hilda fabulous for the help, as I wonder if they're all gonna screw up. Ambrose tells the robot he's got a big date tonight, so he wants him to draw him a bath. Based on the pun-based humor of this comic, I'm guessing he'll literally draw a picture of a bath for him. You'd think they'd worry that this would happen, because magic tends to interpret puns and turns the phrase literally, and that can screw up their spells. Hilda tells the robot near her to finish making her brew since she's all zapped out. I guess she doesn't feel like stirring it. Her instructions aren't nearly clear enough. Wouldn't the robot just ask for clarification on how to make the rest of the brew? Sabrina's the most polite and clear of them all, saying that she'd appreciate it if the robot would clean her messy room. I like that the robot speaks informally, like, consider it done. They immediately celebrate about not having to do any more boring chores. They also look on the bright side that they don't have to feed or pay them or give them time off. Ambrose's robot fails in a predictable way, and he tells them that he wanted him to fill his bathtub with water so that he could soak in it. It makes Ambrose look unlikable that he insults the robot with name-calling. No better than Eggman. I wonder if the robot took offense, since he proceeds to put Ambrose's head under the bathtub tapped with the water on. I guess the robot doesn't know any better because it's not a human, so he doesn't know that the head is the one part you wouldn't want soaked. But this could have easily been avoided if Ambrose had just left it at, I want you to fill the bathtub with water. He didn't even say that he wanted the robot to make him soak in it. Ambrose runs away screaming that his robot is crazy. Hilda is reasonable enough to give the robot a chance, saying that he probably didn't give his robot the correct instructions. It turns out there's icky stuff seeping from the kitchen because Hilda's robot is making too much brew. At least he knew how to make the brew somehow, with no instructions at all, but he was too stupid to have the common sense to realize that if the cauldron is full, he should stop making brew because it'll end up spilling onto the floor. The robot tells Sabrina that he cleaned up her room, but the room's empty because he didn't know what to throw away, and all of her possessions get put in the garbage truck and it drives away. So the story ends with Sabrina sobbing at the potential idea that future generations would have robots of their own. I guess all of the screw-ups made sense. The robots were completely brand new to the world. How were they supposed to know? But still, they knew English. And Hilda's robot knew how to make her brew right away. You think the robots would ask for clarification on their orders if the order doesn't make sense? or they get doubtful that their next course of action would be approved of. Eggman has robot servants, and it works out perfectly, until he wants the heroes defeated. It's all because the robots were stupid and not given enough information, not because robots are a bad idea. It seems like the story ended before an inevitable robot uprising could happen from the robots getting annoyed with their masters not giving them time off and taking advantage of them too much. Sabrina would just instantly stop the garbage truck with her powers, not just run after it telling it to come back. She'd never lose her possessions. In the comedy page, Sabrina cheats with her magic, casting a spell that everything she gets her hands on would go through that basket. Why would she make a spell that broad instead of just making the spell specific to basketballs? It's funny to see her dunk Harvey, but it never happened for this reason. It only happened because he looked at another girl. Now she'll have to erase everyone's memory of this to avoid the consequences. Also, the sheer fact that she just cheat with her magic right away with no second thought makes it seem like she has no business being on a sports team. In the next story, a snowball gets thrown at Hilda's hat, and it falls off because of some kids. Hilda wants to zap him, reminding me of what her character actually is. Sabrina tells her not to do this, and somehow she thinks it puts it on purpose. Maybe she's lying to her. Then she gets hit with a snowball too, and she has to stop Hilda from zapping them. Sabrina tells her that kids are supposed to have fun. Some people on a snowmobile or whatever go past them and make them fall over. And Sabrina forgives them because it was probably only an accident and they're just having fun. Hilda says she would have zapped a brick wall in front of them. And Sabrina says that she likes to see kids having fun. Then she gets sprayed with snow and hit with a snowball. All of this suffering had to happen to justify her snapping at them after all of her talk in front of Hilda. I think she would have snapped right away if Hilda wasn't there. The story ends with her summoning a giant snowball to roll after the kids. The first story sucks. Della confuses me by wanting to rob Sabrina of her powers because she's using them at every opportunity, when before, she said that if you have the power, you should use it. And she didn't want Sabrina to be a self-hating witch who wanted to be normal. It's like she'll take any excuse to bother Sabrina. I guess this comic has no continuity, but that's no excuse for the characterization not being consistent. The happy ending does nothing to make up for Della. It's not like she has her powers back by the end. I guess she got them back right away because the punishment failed. The second story confuses me as well because Hilda's out of character. Despite being a proudly stereotypical witch, she wants to make a peace potion because there's too much violence in the world. It's not like she just got hit. Normally it's Sabrina saying that there's too many problems in the world already, and Hilda just tells her that it's witches who caused that, and that's what they should do. Is this character development? Because in the same issue later on, Hilda's back to being in character. If the writer knew that logically Della would be furious, why wasn't she meant to do anything if that was even brought up? Thankfully it was mostly a sweet story where people are made to be nice. But it's weird that Sabrina didn't figure things out. Or that she even put her flask next to an identical one at all. The third story is about the robot servants of Sabrina's family all screwing up because they're idiots who were just created and were instructed wrong, and were left to assume they were zapped out of existence, when Eggman would have improved on his robot programming skills and made better ones, even if he dismantled them. At least all of their screw-ups made sense. Why don't the witches use genies instead if they can zap them up and order them around just fine? They'd never think of robots. Wouldn't all the witches have genie slaves all the time? Somehow it ends with Sabrina losing her possessions to a truck. And the fourth story is a frustrating one where Sabrina keeps getting hit by sledding kids, and she keeps saying that it's fine because she doesn't want Hilda to bother them. But eventually she snaps. That's kind of basic story that should have been a lot shorter. And this issue introduces a new writer for most of it, Dick Malmgren.